When we think of world wars, our minds often turn to the two catastrophic conflicts that shaped the 20th century. But more than a century before World War I, the world witnessed a struggle so vast, so interconnected, that it can rightly be called the first true global conflict in human history. From the forests of North America to the jungles of India, from the Caribbean seas to the heart of Europe, nearly every major power of the 18th century would be drawn into the flames. Britain, France, Austria, Prussia, Russia, Spain, Sweden, and Portugal all fought not only for dominance in Europe, but for control of a rapidly expanding world. Seeds of rivalry. The causes of the 7 Years' War lay deep within the tangled politics of the early 1700s. For over half a century, Europe had been dominated by two powerful dynasties, the Bourbon kings of France and the Habsburg rulers of Austria. Each sought to tip the delicate balance of power in its favor. The most recent of their many clashes, the War of the Austrian Succession, 1740 to 1748, had left Europe weary and unresolved. Though Maria Theresa retained her throne as Empress of Austria, she was forced to surrender Silesia, a wealthy province, to Frederick the Great of Prussia. The peace signed at Aix-la-Chapelle brought no satisfaction, only resentment. Old wounds festered. Old ambitions burned brighter than ever. The diplomatic revolution. By the mid-1750s, Europe's web of alliances was unraveling. In Vienna, distrust grew toward Britain, Austria's longtime ally, after London refused to defend Austrian interests in the Netherlands. Meanwhile, Maria Theresa sought revenge against Prussia and turned to an unlikely friend, France, her nation's former enemy. This dramatic realignment, known as the Diplomatic Revolution, saw Austria and France join forces for the first time, backed by Russia. Britain, now isolated, turned to Prussia for protection. Sparks in the New World. Across the Atlantic, tension simmered in North America. Britain's 13 colonies stretched along the eastern seaboard, while France claimed vast territories inland, from the Great Lakes down the Mississippi River to Louisiana. The boundary between them was undefined, but one thing was clear: neither side intended to yield. In 1754, the French built Fort Duquesne in the Ohio River Valley, a strategic move to block British expansion. The British protested, then sent a young officer named George Washington to confront them. His small force ambushed a French patrol at the Battle of Jumonville Glen, marking the first shots of the conflict. The French retaliated soon after, forcing Washington to surrender at Fort Necessity. Though the war was not yet official, the flames of the 7 Years' War had been lit. The war erupts as fighting intensified in North America. Known there as the French and Indian War, tensions spread across the seas. British warships began seizing French vessels, blockading ports, and cutting off supplies. France struck back, invading the British-held island of Minorca in 1756. The British response was swift. On May 17, 1756, Britain declared war on France, and the 7 Years' War officially began. A year later, France returned the declaration, and the world was plunged into chaos. In Europe, Frederick the Great of Prussia struck first, invading Saxony to preempt an Austrian attack. His daring campaign brought initial success, but soon met fierce resistance. At the Battle of Culloden in 1757, his forces suffered a costly defeat at Austrian hands. Meanwhile, the French invaded Hanover, Britain's German possession, forcing its army to retreat. Across multiple fronts, the war raged without mercy. A global struggle. The 7 Years' War was unlike any conflict before it, a truly global war. In India, the British and French East India Companies fought proxy wars for influence, each backed by local princes and private armies. The Carnatic Wars turned the Indian subcontinent into another theater of imperial rivalry. In the Caribbean, sugar islands became battlegrounds. In Africa, coastal forts changed hands. And on the high seas, the mighty Royal Navy clashed with French fleets from the Atlantic to the Indian Ocean. Yet it was in North America where Britain would achieve its greatest victories. Under the leadership of William Pitt the Elder, Britain poured money and manpower into the colonial war. By 1759, remembered as the Year of Victories, British forces captured Quebec, Guadeloupe, and Madras, striking devastating blows to the French Empire. A new world order. The 7 Years' War was more than a contest of armies. It was a turning point in global history. It marked the dawn of British world dominance, the beginning of Prussia's rise, and the decline of France's colonial empire. But its consequences reached even further. Crippling war debts drove Britain to tax its American colonies, a decision that would ignite the American Revolution just a decade later. From the smoke of its battlefields emerged a new world, one built upon the ashes of the old. This was the 7 Years' War, the conflict that connected every continent, reshaped empires, and set humanity on the path toward the modern age. Europe in turmoil. In 1756, Frederick the Great of Prussia launched a preemptive strike on Saxony, igniting the flames of war. To the west, Britain stood as Prussia's main ally, while France, Austria, and Russia united in opposition. The early years were brutal for Frederick. His armies faced near disaster as the Russians advanced into East Prussia and the Austrians marched through Bohemia. Even the Swedes joined in, invading Pomerania. But Frederick's brilliance soon turned the tide. At Rossbach, November 1757, his smaller Prussian army crushed a Franco-German force twice its size. A month later, at Leuthen, he defeated the Austrians, restoring Prussia's hope and his legend as one of Europe's greatest commanders. The war expands to India. While Europe burned, the struggle spread to India. The British and French East India Companies, both vying for dominance, turned their trading posts into fortresses. On June 23, 1757, at the Battle of Plassey, a young British officer, Robert Clive, led a small force of company troops and Indian allies against the Nawab of Bengal's massive army. Against all odds, Clive triumphed. The victory marked the beginning of British rule in India and the decline of French influence on the subcontinent. By 1761, the fall of Pondicherry ended France's imperial ambitions in India altogether. North America, the French and Indian War. Across the Atlantic, another front raged, the French and Indian War. The French struck first, seizing British forts such as Oswego and William Henry. But Britain's vast population in the colonies, 2 million to France's mere 100,000, soon proved decisive. Under the leadership of William Pitt, Britain's Secretary of State, a bold new strategy emerged. Let Prussia hold Europe, while Britain attacked France's colonies overseas. In 1758, the British captured Louisbourg, then moved inland. A year later came the turning point, the Battle of the Plains of Abraham, September 13, 1759, outside Quebec. British forces under General James Wolfe faced the French under General Montcalm. Both commanders were mortally wounded, but Britain prevailed, and with Quebec's fall, the fate of New France was sealed. The global war, Africa, and the Caribbean. The British Navy struck far beyond Europe. In West Africa, they seized French trading posts in Senegal. In the Caribbean, British forces captured the sugar-rich island of Guadeloupe, one of France's most valuable colonies. These victories drained France's resources and shattered its global trade network. The war's final phase, 1760 to 1763. By 1760, every nation was exhausted. Prussia teetered on collapse, beset by Austria, Russia, and Sweden. Then, in a stunning twist, fate intervened. In 1762, the Russian Empress Elizabeth died. Her successor, Peter III, was a great admirer of Frederick the Great. Russia abruptly switched sides, joining Prussia and ending its war against them. At the same time, Spain, under King Charles III, entered the war on France's side. The result was disastrous. In less than a year, the British captured Havana in Cuba and Manila in the Philippines, dealing a crushing blow to Spain's empire. Aftermath and legacy. The war left every empire drained and in debt. Britain emerged as the world's dominant global power, but the cost was high. To pay for the war, new taxes were levied on the American colonies, sparking outrage and revolution just a decade later. The 7 Years' War had reshaped the world and set the stage for the birth of a new one. Closing scene. The globe turns slowly. The sound of cannon fire fades into silence. From the fields of Europe to the jungles of India, from the Caribbean seas to the forests of North America, the 7 Years' War was more than a battle between kings. It was the dawn of the modern world.